Thank you for joining us today, folks. My name is Richard Marshall. I'm president of Siskiyou County Water Users Association, and this is part of an educational series. And this time we're going to be speaking to Tony Intiso, who has filed a lawsuit against the state of California in regards to the Klamath Dam's funding. And I'm going to turn to Tony and ask him to tell us a little bit about himself, and then we'll go into the lawsuit that he has filed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tony?
Good morning, Richard.
Good morning.
Well, first of all, I'm a resident of Siskiyou County approximately 30 years. I'm 86 years old, and I've have a very eclectic background that encompasses agricultural business, commercial business, government business, and the private sector. So I have a varied and wide experience. And I brought this lawsuit because it became apparent to me that a whole lot of lies were being told about this dam removal. And I'm concerned for the environment as much as I am that these are clean energy producers, and if you replace it with other alternatives, we're talking about higher costs to the public. Anyway, the reason I filed the lawsuit was because of several concerns. Well, one, as I said, the environment, and two, they have illegally appropriated monies from a bond act which was entitled the Water Quality, Supply, and Infrastructure Improvement Act of 2014.
Commonly referred to as Prop 1.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct.
Right.
Commonly referred to as Proposition 1.
Right.
Now, the way that mechanism works and the way the bonds works is that a person is put in charge, and that person is Secretary Wade Crowfoot of the Natural Resources Agency for the state of California. His limited authority is to look at projects brought to him to be funded out of the bond that was appropriated. He decided that dam removal fit the criteria in the Bond Act to be funded. I don't want to get into this too far because it's pending legislation, but basically what the lawsuits is asking the court is that is the language in the Bond Act mean what it says? And if it does, then they have illegally used money to fund the dam removal.
Can you explain to people, do you feel it's appropriate to explain to people the precise part of that you're aiming at?
Well, yes. In the Bond Act, there are numerous, I'll call them categories, but they're entitled as chapters. And one of the chapters references the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act. And what is so interesting about this is that if you recall, several years ago, the State Attorney General invoked the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act to stop the raising of the Shasta Dam to increase storage.
Yeah, I remember that. They were going to raise it 18 feet, as I recall.
Yeah, so he said, "Oh no, you're gonna put too much water back into the McCloud River, and thereby we're invoking the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act."
Right.
Okay, if he's so adamant about the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act, that's what it says in the bond. No monies and no actions that disturb or impact the wild and scenic,
Adversely impact the...
impact the wild and scenic river can be used. Okay, which position are you going to take this time, Mr. Secretary? That's one of the reasons I brought the lawsuit. I don't want to go much more into it because there's some fine legal points that we can get them on.
I understand that, and I think the audience does too. Could you tell us, though, roughly what the status of the lawsuit now is?
Okay, I filed the lawsuit December 5th, 2022. They received it and were served on the 14th of January, or no, I'm sorry, the 14th of December 2022, I heard from 3 attorneys from the Department of Justice acknowledging the receipt and asking for an extension in time.
Mm-hmm.
I said, yes, I'll agree to.
This is time to respond to your...
Time for them to respond.
Yeah, right.
So I said, yes, that's fine. So currently it's sitting, I'm waiting for them because the court requires a meet and confer
Right.
prior to you have any service. So I'm waiting for them to tell me, when do you want to meet and confer and discuss this?
Right.
That's the status right
Hey,
now.
and one of you, could you explain to the audience what you've asked the court to decide on? What's the issue to decide on?
I'm asking the court. Okay, I'm asking the court to interpret the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act language. Does this language mean that they illegally spent the money? And if it does, then I'm asking the court to issue an injunction to stop it.
Right. Now, that's a very important point, Tony, so I want to make sure it's clear to the audience what it is you're asking the judge to do in this case. Because some people out there I know have a different take on it. They don't understand exactly what it is you're asking. So could you just go over that one more time, so the audience,
Okay.
explain to them what it is you're asking to do?
We're asking the court for an interpretation of the language in the law. And when you do that, then the court becomes responsible for issuing an order one way or the other. I'm not asking for any on any environmental issues or whether I'm for or against dam removal.
Right.
I'm asking that the funds have been I believe the funds have been illegally appropriated, and therefore I want an interpretation of the law from the court.
Right. And as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand it, if you're successful, Tony, then the state of California has to stop giving money to KRRC to fund them.
That's correct. They have to stop giving them any funds
Right.
based upon the Wild and Scenic River language.
So essentially what you're doing, as it's properly called in your lawsuit, a taxpayer lawsuit, you're looking out in this lawsuit to protect the taxpayers of the state of California, yourself being one, to make sure that the state follows their own laws, in effect,
Correct.
in this case,
That's
where
correct.
we feel and you feel that the state is actually abrogating its own laws.
Right, and
Yeah.
the fact that they stood up, so to speak, for the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act, and now they're going to
Right.
oppose it. That doesn't make sense.
But we have seen before that the administration, particularly in California, can stand on two sides of an issue and speak out of both sides of their mouth.
You're absolutely correct.
Okay, well, we want to have people support you in this effort. So funding is very important, folks out there who are interested in this. You can contact the Siskiyou County Water Users Association website, and we will have the information on there to get money to Tony Intiso to help him in this process. So all donations are appreciated. Contact the Siskiyou Water Users through their website, Siskiyou County Water Users Association.org. Thank you very much, and thank you, Tony, for all the
Thank
work
you for
you're doing.
having me.
You bet.